I haven't had a Men in Black experience, but I've had people on the show who
Oh,
have, and these were things that I never knew these experiences were like this. None of them have been pleasant, according to the people that have had these experiences. And to me, it's almost like these Men in Black are other beings of themselves.
so today on HauntedHour Podcast, we have Danny Whitson, who is a professional magician, stand-up comedian, podcaster, and actor from Knoxville, Tennessee, with a passion for magic. And I love that there's a passion for the magic. For the past 20 years, Danny has been entertaining people with cards, coins, ropes, and anything else he can make disappear or crack a joke about. He has performed for celebrities, Super Bowl champions, and Grammy award-winning artists. Danny has even starred with Kevin McDonald from the hit comedy sketch show Kids in the Hall. He also performs regularly at Harrah's casinos. And then I did notice here that you say you can catch Danny this winter on Amazon Prime in the comedy horror movie WJHCAM. So before we get into any ET stories, I wanted to hear about the movie.
All right. Well, first of all, Dee Dee, thank you for having me. I've seen your podcast and I've seen, the videos, and I'm like, I can't wait to hop on here and talk some ET. But talking TV first, the WJHCAM, and that's always a big mouthful when I tell people, but what it is, it's a radio station. And I got offered a role in this movie, and when I read the script, I was like, "Well, this is amazing." It's basically about a DJ that moves down south, and he's trying to find a job, and it takes place during 1999. And you and I can both remember 1999. One of the big crazes of 1999 was the Y2K crisis.
Right.
So, anyways, the only job that he can get is at a Christian gospel radio station. And now I don't know if your listeners or viewers are familiar with how they are and down south, but they get a little crazy when they start thinking about the end of the world. And so basically this DJ is a big culture shock because people think the end of the world is happening. They're calling into the radio station thinking the rapture's coming, Christ is coming back, and at the movie takes a big twist. There's a lot of laughs, with the cultural differences, but then the movie takes a big twist, and it is the end of the world. So the zombie apocalypse hits, and I was lucky enough to be casted to play the character of Pastor Sparks, faith healer. And now this is where it gets a little geeky. Then the geeks will love this. Gamer geeks will love this. But in the 1990s, there was a famous video game called Street Fighter 2. Okay. My character is obsessed with the video game Street Fighter 2. So when he heals his people, he does invisible fireballs. It's a big, people who play the game will totally get it. But anyways, it was a blast to make. I had fun. And, kind of got the bug a little bit there. So some more movie roles coming down the pipeline.
Ooh, that's exciting. I love that. I was watching the Walking Dead's my first zombies that I could kind of watch and tolerate. And so now I'm kind of like, when I hear zombies, I'm kind of interested to see how each kind of writer or director has zombies because there's all these kind of different ways that zombies manifest. So it's interesting to watch different versions.
One of the scary things about zombies is that, it is possible. There's been these, I believe there was some type of voodoo drug, in voodoo that you could take that would turn you into a zombie. And also, a lot of people don't realize, but rabies, if rabies goes to a certain point, to once you start showing symptoms, it's too late.
Yeah.
There's no cure, and you're basically a zombie.
Yeah. Ooh, I never thought about that. Something new for my nightmares. Oh my God. That'd be a great movie in itself, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I was on your podcast a couple of weeks ago, and you had mentioned that you had your own extraterrestrial experience. So I've been waiting all this time to hear what happened.
And this was just recently too. This is because now and I think, man, you even spoke, I believe some people are more sensitive to these things. And the more you have your windows open, the more you're able to experience and see these things.
Yeah.
Well, it was only up to a couple years before I got on the UFO, bandwagon, I guess you want to call it. I didn't have a problem with believing in ghosts and the paranormal. Didn't have a problem with believing in that. But I kind of, when it came to UFOs, I was like, because I am a science person. So, and I knew so many things had to be perfect just for something else just to come here,
Yeah.
But it wasn't until a few years, the founder of Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, his name's Ryan Stacy. He's a UFO investigator, private investigator.
Oh.
He kind of opened my eyes to some things that the normal everyday person doesn't know about. So, but anyways, I didn't have anything after that for years. I would look around and, I was really getting into it. But probably about 6 months ago, it may not have been that long, but I was driving down the road, sunny day, just normal day. And something told me, Danny, look up. And I looked up, and sure enough, plain as day, I saw a cylinder type figure flying through the sky. And it wasn't, my first thing I thought, I was like, wait a minute, is this a plane? Let me see. Is there wings? And there's nothing, no wings, no flashing light like you'll normally see on a plane. It was just a cylinder shape, just moving right along. And I thought, drone, is this a drone? And I thought, well, no, that can't be a drone because that's way too high to be a drone. And then I thought, and it's way too low to be a plane. And I started, looking at the size of this thing compared to how I was seeing it. And I was like, wow, what is that? And then I had a Bigfoot moment, DD. The thing that people and, the Bigfoot people always get crap for. So I pull out my phone and I'm dry, and I'm like, let me get a picture, and I try to snatch a picture. And then I look at it and all I get is a blurry dashboard. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no one's going to believe me.
Right.
So, but yeah, I saw that, and now I'll even mention this, and now probably I'm just going to mention it for conversation's sake. But last week, once again, I was driving, and I looked up and I saw something silver through the clouds for a moment, and now it could have been a plane, it could have been anything. I don't know what that was, but for first instinct, I was like, wait, So now I'm looking up a lot more though.
Yeah. That's really exciting that your intuition told you to look. So it's like there was a knowing that makes it more, because you don't get that when an airplane's flying by or anything, you don't think, oh, look up. So it made it more special that there was something that alerted you that you needed to look up. So for me, that's something right there. What is the cylinder? Because I'm not real familiar. I'm like you. I'm just now getting interested in this kind of phenomenon. But what is a cylinder supposed to represent? Do they know?
I don't know. I know a lot of the Tic Tac videos that the Navy have released, and it's become a big UFO phenomenon, the Tic Tac videos. And a lot of UFOs, there's the triangle, there's the Tic Tac cylinder. A lot of those. I saw a Tic Tac. I saw something, a cylinder type shape. And the thing that is really bothersome a little bit is the nonchalantness of this thing. I mean, it was moving fast, but it was moving to where, but not so fast to where it's like, I don't care if anyone sees what's going on. So, and I even, and to follow up with that story, I was like, okay, if it's here now, it should be over here by now. And I tried to follow, but I couldn't find it anywhere else. But, yeah, I mean, and a lot of reports have been the triangle, the cylinder, Tic Tac, and then there's also more of a, I guess it's just a circle, like a more round sphere type thing that you see a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely, people are definitely reporting more UFO sightings than they ever have before, which makes sense because everyone has a camera now.
Yeah.
So I always said this. I was like, in this day and age, when everyone has a camera attached to them, we should have all kinds of evidence. And we're not just seeing it with UFOs. We're seeing it with paranormal, Bigfoot, everything out there.
Yeah. So do you think that there's just more happening now with this extraterrestrial activity, or do you think it's just that people are paying attention to it more?
I think that's a difficult call because when it comes to the UFO, I really try to stay very rational about stuff. I do know I can't guarantee that it's little green men that are coming here. I can't, I personally like to lean on the theory that it's interdimensional. Like if we have made contact with something else, it's something from another dimension. And the technology sometimes that we are seeing and flying around our skies it does belong to us. There's a big theory, a big thought that we've learned, we have discovered this technology was put here from another non-human being,
Right.
civilization, and we've been trying to reverse engineer it for years now. And I believe 100. I believe that's what's happening. I believe absolutely that's what happens. So sometimes we see them now, and how long has this been going on? I don't know. So it may be a little bit of a combination of both, to answer your question.
Yeah. Well, do you think that people have invented things through dreams? So do you think that I'm exploring the possibility that maybe the information we're getting in dreams, where some people will call it like spirit guides or our higher selves, could it actually be some of these extraterrestrials that are giving us information because how do people come up with instant information where did it come from? Just out of their subconscious?
Absolutely. And I've got something crazy I got to tell you, by the way, on the dream thing. I dreamed I had last night. It just kind of so weird. But no, yeah, I think that 100%, because I think, the brain, first of all, our brain is so different than any other organ we have in our entire body. Okay. And I think that the brain is like a satellite. It's almost like a satellite to consciousness, to other things in the universe. Yeah. So, and when you dream, the weird thing about it is we lose consciousness with this reality every day, every night when we lay down, but right. Things are still going on up here, Yeah. So we, like doctors have said, well, one of the reasons why we dream is your brain is trying to sort out what it needs and what it doesn't need. But it's right. There's also more going on. There's these other things that they don't know. Yeah. So I 100% believe that. There's been several people that, they've had a dream or idea. And you even mentioned on the podcast about dream journaling and stuff like that, writing your stuff down, and the experiences that you told me about with your experiments, which is just mind blowing, Yeah. But no, I believe 100%. I believe that we are communicated through our dreams with this other dimension, or, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would like to. Can I say this real quick? Can I say the dream I had last night? Oh, this is weird. And tell me, what do you think about this? This was weird. I don't know why. First, I didn't even know it was a dream. But in my dream, I woke up that my phone was going off. And I was like, well, who in the heck's calling me? It's 2 a.m. in the morning. So I answered it, and someone said, hey, are you awake right now? And I was like, well, I am now. I said, well, I just wanted to let you know America's being invaded. And I was like, now this shows you how much I cared, Dee Dee. I was like, okay. And went back to sleep. So I don't know if I actually really woke up in my sleep and I didn't have any missed calls, but that seemed so real and vivid at the moment when it was going on. But I also remember in my mind when he told me, it's like, you know what, dude, at this point, I don't care. So I went back to sleep. If they're going to get me, I'm going to be sleeping. So, yeah. But I just thought that was weird. That was such a very vivid dream too.
Yeah. And especially because it was a phone call, which is obviously communication. And they gave you the actual message was America's being invaded. That could mean like a lot of different things. Was it a reference to extraterrestrials? Was it because of all the political stuff going on right now that your subconscious is just like, we're being invaded by craziness? Like it could mean a lot of different things, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was so wild. That was. And I love the fact that happened on the eve of your podcast.
Yeah,
So
it was perfect timing.
I thought that
What
was just crazy.
about it's awesome. What about Men in Black? I don't know if you've ever heard of Justin Bamforth. He'd be great for your podcast too, but he collects data from people who usually they'll have like a ET or UFO experience, and then they'll have a Men in Black experience. And so he documents all of the different experiences people have had. So do you think that as of yet, you've had like a Men in Black experience, some weird encounter?
I haven't had a Men in Black experience, but I've had people on the show who
Yeah.
have, and these were things that I never knew these experiences were like this. You know, none of them have been pleasant, according to the people that have had these experiences. And to me, it's almost like these Men in Black are other beings of themselves. To me, when I heard Men in Black, I'm thinking Tommy Lee Jones, Will Smith showing up to my house.
Right. Yeah.
But two guys that work for the government. But apparently, that's not the case.
Yeah.
When people have these experiences with the Men in Black, it's almost like a extraterrestrial thing that's going on. And I've heard some pretty horrible experiences people have had with them.
Oh, can you share any?
I mean, for one, I don't want to, of course, give her name. You could always go back and check some of the episodes that I let her, talk about that. But one of them is abuse, some pretty bad stuff, being taken and questioned, and there was some physical abuse that took place. So,
Wow.
yeah, stuff like that. I've heard some I've never heard anything, we showed up, we had a few beers. They were hilarious. I've never heard anything like that. But would love to have Justin on. Absolutely. Would love to have him on.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll definitely give you his information. So because I had an experience that I thought when he was on our podcast, he says people who interview him usually end up having a Men in Black experience. And so Sarah and I, so we were like, okay, so that'd be another interesting reason to do it. The one experience I had, and I told you about it, I think, was the lady in the post office and how she was just, it was very unexpected for this elderly woman to speak so clearly, even though she was wearing a face mask. And then she was talking about, our place in the sky has changed. The dark clouds are lower. Like, it was so weird. But the way that she said it was just so like matter of fact. Like, she was just giving me this really important information. I had never had any kind of experience like that before. Everything about it was weird. And so I actually wrote him about it, and he didn't have anybody who had that experience, but he thought it was interesting enough that he added it to his, book or his documents. So I don't know. From the ones that he talked about, they weren't all scary. But it was always somebody that was either involved in the paranormal. It's almost like you start to dig too deep and they start to look into you, So like you interview all these people that have had ET experiences. I would think that at some point you're going to be, if they exist, you're going to be on their radar.
And I think there's something. I agree. I think people who have had experiences, because the people that I've talked to, they have had extraterrestrial experiences where they've been abducted, or something of that matter, and then they wind up having the Men in Black show up.
Right.
But I used to think it though they were just normal people, but now I think there's something else, because I've heard, like I said, the more stories you hear, even though I haven't had this, the physical experience myself, but the more stories you hear from different people, and there's so much similarities, it's hard to say, well, there's not something happening here,
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually really interesting to think that maybe all this is going on behind the scenes, and with like all the political stuff going on right now. And there's always the conspiracy theory that there's things being run behind the scenes, and the people we see are just like the puppets, You
can't help but think, and I try not to go too far on the conspiracy land,
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard not to think. Well, just like, the incident that just happened with the assassination attempt, you're like, how did that like really happen?
Yeah.
That seemed like that was too simple,
Too easy. Yeah.
Too easy. And it's just, and I'm going to say this. All right. and I can't believe I'd ever say this because I used to make fun of these people. I believe, this is what I believe. I may be dead wrong, but I believe that there is another group who really runs the show and who influences one side if they want in charge, or they influence the other side if they want that side in charge. And I believe they do the same thing here with the UFO. What's going on with UFOs? I believe we are slowly being let in on the truth, but the way to do that is you cast your line. It's like fly fishing, and you pull back a little more, and eventually we're gonna, be able to accept this as a reality. That's just what I believe in my heart, that these other people are kind of puppets, and it is what it is. And as long as we just keep our heads down and we watch our Netflix and we eat our fast food and we live, it's a happy little life.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as we don't get on their, like, you start getting on their radar and they start
don't get on their radar, don't step on toes, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh my God. That totally made me lose my train of thought.
Well, and I mean, I don't want to be now. I'm going to be completely honest. There is some things that not everything is a conspiracy. No, things happen in real life. People suck at their jobs in real life. We do like to think, like when you look at the Secret Service, we like to think that Clint Eastwood is over there talking. No, that's not happening. That's not happening. That person you went to college with, who you saw play beer pong, well, now they got a good job. So I mean, so people can screw up and make mistakes. That does happen. You always have to keep that other side of, well, I could be wrong.
Oh, definitely.
But at the same time, if it smells like a duck and it swims like a duck, it might be a duck.
Yeah.
So,
which kind of leads me into the whole, like, okay, so you're a magician, a comedian, and then you've got like the paranormal stuff going on. So what came first, and how did the other two come out of it?
Magic came first. I even though I was a late bloomer for magic, most magicians get a magic kit when they're like 8 and they fall in love with it. What did I get when I was 8? Well, my mom and dad got a plumber for my birthday one year. I'll never forget that. But yeah, I didn't get into it till probably I was in my early 20s. I walked in the magic shop and I just caught the bug big time. That's what we call it in magic, the magic bug. You get your mind blown and you realize, but see, here's the attraction. Is I was attracted because the thing about with magic is when people get into magic, they realize that you don't know how everything works.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I've got to know. So I got into magic and sit down for the next 5 years studying books, teaching myself, learning sleight of hand, studying everything I can, about magic. And then I got into work in restaurants, but then I became a street busker. I would work the streets, like you've seen street buskers, where people gather up and see magic shows and jugglers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I learned to be engaging and be entertaining, and because on the streets, if they don't like you, they just leave.
Right. Yeah.
So I learned how to be an entertainer on the streets, and then from there, I kind of made my way into comedy clubs and learned stand-up comedy, and just later on meshed the two, and that's how it took off. But which I tell people is not easy to do, because good comedy is telling the truth and good magic is BS. So blending BS and the truth together is not always easy, but I've kind of worked on it and found my niche with it. But the one thing that's a little that contradicts what I do now is a lot of magicians are anti anything supernatural, anti anything psychic, medium, and one of the main reasons because Houdini was he was against it, and he went after, I think at the time, Edgar Cayce was a big deal, and Houdini went after that and saying he's a fraud, and I know how to do all the tricks. I know how to, manipulate, make it sound like, I know cold reading. I know how to make it look like I'm reading your mind. I know all that. But even though I know all the secrets to these things, that doesn't disprove that somebody isn't having a real psychic, the phenomenon going on.
Right.
And just like we've all had that one thing that, we think about, then it happens.
Yeah.
Even magicians, I mean, everybody.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little, when it comes to magicians who debunk that, yes, there's frauds in everything. But just because there's frauds doesn't mean there are actual people, or it doesn't mean that the truths aren't out there as well.
I agree. It's the same thing with paranormal evidence. There's so many people putting out evidence. And I think there's probably only 1% of the people who are purposely putting stuff out that they know isn't right. I think a lot of times people think it is, and it's not, but it's not because they're lying to themselves rather than trying to lie to others. But there's stuff that happens that there's just no way that there's no explanation. I mean, I guess like they say, we're using parts of our mind that we're not even, science doesn't even know. So maybe that could be part of it, but there's just things that are completely undeniable. So,
well, two of my biggest, now, like me and my wife, we watch and my wife's a big paranormal fan. It's her entertainment and her hobby. And, cool. It's fine. But she loves to watch the television show Paranormal Caught on Tape. And there's a lot of garbage that makes that television show. I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of stuff that I'm like, yeah, that's fake. I mean, that's somebody just getting likes and views and wants to be on a TV show. And one of the ones that I can't stand, to me, I think the least believable paranormal evidence that you can put on videotape is your camera aimed perfectly at the right spot at the perfect time, and the cabinets are flying up. I can do that with fishing line. There's plenty of tricks in magic that I can do that on. You're not impressing me. Now, I will say this, and I do have a ghost. I've got some paranormal stuff. I could tell you stories if you want to hear those.
Oh, I'd love it. Yeah.
Okay. Now, and oops, sorry. Hit the camera there for a moment. Actually, this right here, it happened when I was a child. And something else that I was thinking about, I don't even, it's not till now that I'm more into this world that I've realized how rare of a thing that happened to me when I was 12 years old. But I actually saw a full-blown ghost. I saw an apparition, and it was, over the years, I've went back and forth on trying to just block it out like it didn't happen, because I didn't want to believe in ghosts, and I went from full blown atheist at one time. I was in the, I didn't believe in anything,
right.
And even after experiencing this, I had it pushed back in the back of my mind. But then one day I was like, there's no denying it. But what happened was, I was 12 years old, and I had a buddy staying over with me. We were sitting up late, way past our bedtimes. And I remember we were in the living room, and I heard a noise outside. And this was late. This was probably like midnight, around that time frame. And I remember peeping out the window, and I'm seeing something, but I couldn't make out exactly what it was. So I left the living room, and I walked into our kitchen. Now, our kitchen had another door that led outside.
Oh.
So I opened the door from the kitchen, and I looked out to the front yard, and this is what I saw. Now, keep in mind, Dee, if I was, telling a lie, I would come up with a better, story and a better figure. But this is exactly what I saw. Coming up the sidewalk straight at me was a man, a white man. He had his arms up like this, like hands up, like freeze.
Yeah.
He had a white V-neck T-shirt on. He had green pants. He was barefooted.
Huh.
Now, here's the real kicker. He had no head. Not that it was like a chopped off, bloody, decapitated head, but no, it just wasn't there. The head was not there. Okay.
Wow.
And there was like a glow to him. Almost like, remember the Scooby-Doo cartoons, there was almost like a glow to him, and he was gliding directly towards me. Okay. He wasn't walking, but he was just gliding up towards me. And his hands were up like this. Well, I remember seeing this and I was just frozen because I remember I'm like, what is this? What is this? You know, your whole life you're told as a child that ghosts aren't real. What am
Right.
I seeing right now? So it comes right at me, and then it does a turn, and it begins to go glide down along the side of my house. The sidewalk would come up by where the
Huh.
outside kitchen door was, and
Yeah.
then it would break off and go along the side of the house. Okay,
Oh.
so as soon as it was out of my sight, I shut the door that goes outside from the kitchen, ran back into the living room. I'm shaking my buddy, and I said, "There's a ghost outside. There's a ghost outside. You've got to see this. You've got to see this." He jumps up, looks out the window. Now, this is what we both see from the window. We see this thing just moving along the side of the house. Okay. Now, on the side of the house, we had another porch and a door that you could go from the living room out on this larger porch. And on the stairs of this porch, there were these two big hedge bushes. We watched this thing glide and go straight into one of those bushes, and it was gone.
Oh.
Well, he's terrified. I mean, this kid, I mean, he's crying. He's like, what,
Oh.
what is this,
Yeah.
So then we go out, we got brave enough to walk out on that porch,
Yeah.
and we're like, well, let's throw rocks at it because that's what 12-year-old kids do. You throw rocks at
Right.
stuff. So we pick up some rocks and we just start launching it in that bush, just chew, chew, chew. Then all of a sudden, and as cliche and cheesy as this sounds, this is what happened. The bush starts shaking, and out of that bush is a cat. Shoots right out of the bush. We scream, oh, take off running back inside. My dad wakes up. What the heck's going on? Go to bed. That happened. And
Wow.
over the years, I've tried every way possible to rationalize what I saw. Um, the and even to the point where I was hallucinating. Well, Danny, you just hallucinating. But then I always get the friendly reminder, no, buddy, your friend saw it too.
Right. Yeah.
So, and now here's the other thing, the interesting thing about that road, that the street that I grew up on, is throughout my town, there's these little like rogue graveyards that, I don't even know if anybody keeps up anymore.
Yeah.
Well, on my road, there's an old graveyard around the corner, maybe 2 or 3
Huh.
gravestones in it.
Wow.
And to this day, I can remember it like it was yesterday. And I know that's what I saw. And I don't know.
It sounds kind of like a residual ghost, right? Because it wasn't really interacting with you; it was doing whatever it was doing. And the fact,
That's
like,
what I
cats are
tend to
very,
think.
yeah, and the cats are very intuitive towards spirits and stuff. So I wonder if it gravitated towards the bush to dissipate because the cat was there, and something about cats. Cats are really interesting how they seem to connect with the spirit world. So
And I agree. And I'm a cat person. I've got 2 cats I love more than anything. Doris and Harrison, I love them.
oh,
So I'm not an anti-cat person. And even when I tell the story, when I come to that part, I'm like, here's where it gets cheesy. A cat runs out. But that happened. And then I did have one more interesting thing happen to me. And this one is much more recent. This is, I think, in 2018, 2019. I was on a jog. I had been jogging, went out, and I was along a lakefront out here where I live. And this was the evening time, and I was by myself, and I was on my cool down walk. A lot of times after you do a long run, you'll do a little cool down walk to, cool
yeah.
off. And I was just in my own little world, walking down the trail. And then out of nowhere, something grabs my waist and yanks me off the trail. So my first instinct was, whoa, somebody's on a bike. They've ran into me. Another runner has run into me. And I'm
Yeah.
looking around and no one is around.
Wow.
Not a soul. Now, immediately I'm trying to process everything. What is going on here? What just happened?
Yeah.
Because I'll say this, I've seen, like I said, I've seen ghosts, I've heard things, I've even, we've all had the sixth sense, the hairs pop up on the back of your neck, but there's
Yeah.
nothing worse than something grabbing you. And because for one thing, I can explain to you the experience about something I saw.
Yeah.
Or if I hear it, it sound like this, and you can get detail. But
Yeah.
being touched is so personal.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain to you what it felt like for something out of nowhere to yank. And it was a grip around my waist and a yank, like, get over here. And, that freaked me out so bad. That really, I called my wife. I said, come pick me up right here. Come pick me up right now. And I told her, and I was like, this is, I don't know what just happened.
Have you ever wondered what your dreams are trying to tell you?
Unlock the secrets of your subconscious with my dream interpretation workshops. Join me for an immersive experience where you'll learn to decode your dreams, understand hidden symbols, and gain insights into your deepest thoughts. I will lead you through interactive sessions designed to help you explore the fascinating world of dreams. Don't miss out. Reserve your spot today and start your journey to self-discovery. Visit thedreamsinterpreter.com for more information or email me at info@thedreamsinterpreter.com to get started. Do you think that maybe you were having, because I believe that we all can have psychic moments and have psychic abilities. So do you think that maybe where you were walking, that you were re-experiencing something that maybe someone had been attacked and experienced, and then that was the end of it? And I wonder if you could do like a little research to find out if there was like a crime.
Well, here's the thing is, unfortunately, and this is a very sad situation, along that lakefront there, it's a very popular area, but also there's been a lot of suicides there. So there's been multiple suicides. People go there and they just drive their car right into the lake, or they'll a lot of that. And we've had there's been a lot of things. A lot of people, terrified, young mothers leaving their baby abandoned, and there's been a lot of that through there. So there's definitely a dark aura, let's just say.
Yeah, there's an energy that's drawing some bad things in.
And a lot of paranormal activity tends to happen around water. And we're not just talking about ghosts, but even with your UFOs, so there's, and one little theory I want to throw out there about that is when we get back on the interdimensional type, theory there, when you think about it, water is almost like another dimension.
Yeah.
If you think of the like living beings in that water, they, if you just stuck your head, your face into that water, all they know is like there's this round thing. That's what I'm seeing. That's existence. But outside of that water, there's a whole new other world going on that they can't even fathom.
Right. Yeah.
So I think there's something happening there. I really do.
Yeah, that makes sense, that we're kind of in our own water. And I've heard that about people talking about the dimensions, is that, there's all these, what is there, 12 dimensions or something that they think there are.
There was
dreaming is supposed to be the fourth or the fifth dimension or something like that. So we do travel more than we realize.
Absolutely. And it also, I always found a little skeptical when people, when they have too many paranormal experiences. I'd be just like, come on, no one's experienced, Bigfoot riding a unicorn, but I don't know. Now, heck, look at me. I've had, I've been grabbed. I've seen a ghost and then a UFO. And then I have just stupid things happen. I have so much crap happen that it's just like, well, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to tell anybody about this. This is so dumb.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just think when you got your windows open, like you talk about with dreams, it's, we're being invaded,
Yeah. No. Well, apparently we are, because you had
by idiots, I think, for being invaded.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I can say is that I watched one interview. There was a woman on there that was an experiencer. So, I mean, out of all the different people that have been on, what's like the scariest experience that somebody has told you about?
Oh man, gosh, Didi, I've heard a lot now.
Yeah, go
Here's the
ahead.
thing. I get because I find the funny in everything I do, and one thing I don't ever make fun of anybody like, oh, she's crazy. I never do
Right,
that. But I find the fact of how ridiculous my life is now, how I walk around every day, and I'm like, you guys have no clue what I heard today. you know,
yeah,
I hear so many things that it's ridiculous. It's crazy. The things I hear, not the people, but the things I hear, it's just
right.
that I hear this so much. Um, there, there's one in particular, and man, I wish I could remember her name. I know I could go back where it was in a alien abduction situation, and the aliens that she described, like you hear a lot about the grays. There's little grays and there's the tall grays, and
Yeah.
the tall grays have a tendency to look a little more scarier,
Huh.
a little more based on her description and how she described her husband was dead asleep, and why all these things were just walking around in their bedroom.
Wow.
That one, for some reason, that story in particular really kind of got me. And then there was the one where I talked with who had experience with the Men in Black, and she talked about also a reptilian type extraterrestrial. And I've heard stories of them. I've heard,
Yeah.
and that one I mean, it was a little, uncomfortable. And when you hear these stories, okay, when you hear these stories constantly, and then are having a hard time falling asleep, and you open your eyes, and you know how your eyes can play tricks on you in the dark. You're like,
Yeah.
I've been staring at this monster for a month, and it turns out, oh, that's just me because I won't do the laundry. That's just my pile of clothes over there. But
Yeah.
you start thinking, what if, what if they decide to come by and visit me? So,
Yeah.
but at this point though, I don't think I'd be scared. I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd make
I
a
get what
joke
you
about it, and I'd be like, "Don't put
Yeah.
your finger there," but I don't know if it would help. Uh, but no, I've heard some good ones. I've heard some. Let me. I had a Bigfoot guy on, which is not extraterrestrial, but
Yeah.
and he played some actual sounds, and that kind of hair rose up on the back. I was like, oh, so there's a few good ones out there, but probably the one that stands out is the one lady, and I wish I could think of that her name, but the way she described that tall gray was just, oh man, that was terrifying.
Wow. Yeah, I think yeah, I don't like I said, I'm not that familiar with them. I'm just starting to get into it. And I'm gonna have somebody on the podcast that is like so into it that he can break them all down for me. But
Well,
I
apparently,
always
there's
went
a
with
lot of different races of extraterrestrials.
yeah,
There's
which
the
I find yeah, go ahead.
there's the Nordics that look like humans,
Right.
except they're bigger, and then there's the grays, which I always make a joke. It's like, you know what? It's 2024. Can we call them something besides their color? Come on, get with it, people. You know, uh, but there's the little, and then there's tall, and then there's people that believes the grays are actually androids. They're not real, like they're not real biologics.
Yeah.
I don't know. But then there's the reptilian race, and then there's the almost like the praying mantis looking
Yeah,
things.
those are the ones that scare me.
So yeah, well,
The
heck
bug
yeah, if
one.
you ever see a praying mantis, when you look at them, it's weird because no other insect on this planet looks like that. You
Yeah.
know, so
Oh.
there's a lot of, and when you look at the reptilians, you can, and here I am, I can't believe I'm saying that. See what I'm saying? I mean, this is my world. I can't
Yeah.
just walk up to Bob Smith and be like, so the reptilians. Uh, but but no, when you look at like archaeologists and dinosaurs, and you're like, well, maybe why couldn't they evolved into this lizard people race? Who knows? Because
Yeah.
we only go so far back on history, and we get to the point where we really don't know crap.
No, we really don't. It's the same thing. We've just scratched the surface of, they only whatever they found. But I'm sure that there's been so many civilizations that there's just nothing to show for it. It's disappeared. Like my whole thing about us right now in this time period, all our photos, a lot of our stuff is not physical. It's just like in the cloud or whatever. And it'll get more and more like that, where we will live in these tiny little pods and everything we own is just virtual. I was watching a movie about that. And so when something happens and all that goes away through, something cosmic or something that the humans do themselves, it'll just be gone. And whatever's left and starts anew, they won't even know that this whole time period existed, because there won't be anything to show for it. So,
well, did you experience? We had that glitch. The Microsoft, some dude at Microsoft clicked on a link apparently, but everything. I mean, people couldn't log into their jobs, and so all it takes is one little thing, and all the flights, where no one could flight delays. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to wipe us out. It doesn't. Yeah. And that's the crazy thing. So who knows? I mean, sometimes I like to think, imagine the characters who have existed in history that we'll never know.
Right.
We only know these certain people, who that we've lucky enough to have learned about. But imagine the people who existed that who knows, Yeah. So it's just, there's just so much that we don't know. Basically, we've woken up in a room and we've got a little peephole to peep out of. And that's what we base everything off of,
Yeah. Yeah. And most people don't even like that. I like this kind of genre because everybody kind of does a little bit of research for themselves. People either start podcasts or whatever they do. They join groups or they go out and they do their own ghost hunting. They're researching for themselves because it seems like for the most part, everybody just kind of gathers the information they're given and they don't look into it any further. Conspiracy theories are a great example that somebody says, so I always have to look because my initial reaction is oh my God, I knew it, and then you have to look it up. You're like, oh no, that's ridiculous, but until you actually, I can see how people will just fly off the handle and go with this stuff because it's so close to something that could be, Well,
the sad thing, Dee Dee, this is the truth. Okay. People are lazy. And it's easier for, okay, it just, you said it and it sounds like it could be true, so I'm going to believe it. But I mean, so you have to kind of dig for yourself and you'll find out yourself, kind of like what you did. You'll find out, well, is this true or is this, BS? But right. Most people won't do that. Most people will never do that. It's just how we are, it's just, and it's like that with everything. I always try to be the opposite. When I hear something, I'm like, well, that really sounds like it could be true, but let me do a little bit of digging, and a lot of times I will find some truth, but then I also will find some misleading stuff as well. So, it's important to kind of dig and do your own research, but I think we've done that as human beings forever. When it comes to religion or when it comes to things that your parents told you, their grandparents told them and their great-great-grandparents. So it's got to be true, Right. It's always wise to question even the people you love, but this is a wild thought too, when you think about it. We can only go so far back with human consciousness. So it makes you, so that's whenever we said, well, that's whenever time began. Are you sure? Right. Maybe just our time, but even then you get to the point to where, well, what happened before then? How come it's just really crazy that there's no human being on this planet that can say, well, this is how we got here. This is the real, I remember, no one knows,
Yeah, that's a good point for the collective consciousness. Somebody should actually, people should be able to tap into, the origin. I interviewed a guy, Elvis, and that's his name. And he
conspiracy.
And he had said that back 200,000 years ago, the beings, I guess I'll call them beings, that came before us, that we evolved from, that one of them, the brains were smaller. And they start eating mushrooms off the ground, and they were the magic mushrooms, and that started to make their consciousness grow. And I
Stone Date theory.
Okay,
that's the Stone Date theory, which at 100%, you could totally could psychedelic mushrooms create the brain to do what it does compared to the other brains? I mean, that is a very good theory. Now, also, though, at the same time, though, when you look at other animals on this planet, like, I think intelligence is such a we've been very narrow with that definition. Because when you look at dolphins, you look at crows are highly intelligent.
Yeah.
And then even when you look at, our animals that we love every day, dogs and cats, there's an emotional intelligence that animals have that we're just now really starting to realize. So I mean, I'm not 100% against that. And I've also heard the theory of how, people think that extraterrestrials did come to this planet, did a science experiment with an ape, and boom, you got us. And when you do look at us, the really weird thing, we are the most different. We are different than anything by far on this planet. Why? Why did we evolve to be so special? Why?
Right. Yeah.
There has to, I mean, even whenever you look at, and I believe in a lot of evolution, but why did that ape get out of the doggone tree? Why? And then why did we stay out of the tree? Why? There's doesn't make sense. Staying in the tree was a safe place away from predators. That's where our food was. We were safe up there. Why? I mean, you got to keep your mind open to stuff like that, as crazy as it is,
Yeah, I think that actually kind of makes sense, because I feel like, and that goes back to what I was saying about dreaming and getting information that seems to be, and even like people, like I had when I was 18, I was driving my car and I heard somebody say, roll up your window, like in my knowing. It was like I knew somebody was saying that to me. And I was a 1966 Plymouth Valiant. There was no air conditioning. It was 100 degrees. So I have no reason to roll up my window. And so I kept driving and ignored it because it was a stupid thing to think of. Like, I don't even know where that thought came from. And so then right before a car and truck crashed in front of me, it came at me and said, roll up your window. And I rolled up my window. And the thing about the voice, and saved me, and all the glass hit my window, and that would have been my face from the car and the truck hitting each other. Wow. And the glass all hit that window. And I had just finished rolling it up. But it was like a roar that came at me, like, roll up your window. And at the time, because I came from a religious background, I thought that it was God or a Holy Spirit or something telling me, and maybe it could be, I don't know. But I get the idea of, could it be that each of us have extraterrestrials that are looking out for us? And, maybe they have different, it's their own science experiment, like you say. And so maybe that's why some people get abducted, because they're more into like their experiment. And maybe we have ones that are just like, oh, I'll just keep them safe, and I like them, I'm not going to mess with them. Like, I wonder if it can get, like that, because I feel like everybody has a different experience.
And what's wild is I think, okay, like I said, there was a time in my life where I was a full-blown atheist. Didn't believe in afterlife. I believe this was just it, baby. We're dead and it's gone. There's no God. But in the past 5 years, since I've been, part of this world, I've always said I'm a spiritual person, a believer in God. Even and I do say this right off, I'm not a Christian. I am not a Christian, but my go-to guy is Jesus. Weird, I know. I make my own rules. Who would have thought you could do that in life? But my go-to guy is Jesus. And here's the thing is, I just thought, growing up where in Tennessee, you talk about ghosts and stuff. That's demons. That's bad stuff.
Right.
But all this stuff has kind of brought me around to spirituality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's made me a believer, and it's made me into these things. And so 100%, because there's theories out there. People believe, like, I hear people that think like these extraterrestrials, what we're seeing, are actually angels. And then some people believe, I've heard people say, I had one guy say that they're fallen angels, they're demons,
Yeah.
So I'm open to I don't know what they are. They could be. And whenever you look at the Bible and a lot of the stories in the Bible,
right.
UFOs are in the Bible, guys. It is. And there's a lot of experiences people had with angels that could be the same as being abducted. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to leave it out there. But yeah, and what happened to you? I've heard stories like that. I think there's something really to that, and especially with you, Dee Dee. You're somebody. Your windows are wide open up there anyway. So this is probably a gift that you've had your whole life.
Yeah. And I just never, because me too, when I was a kid, and my parents always were going on tours like the Queen Mary and
Nice.
the Winchester House and stuff like that. And as soon as they
Nice.
would say ghosts, I'd always be like, because I was a kid, I'd be like, oh, ghosts. And everybody would be like, oh, there's no such thing as ghosts. So I grew up with always the thought in my head, there's no such things as ghosts. But as a child, I was always, and probably because I watched Bewitched and stuff, but I was always trying to do like magic, like with my parents' back would be turned, I'd be like trying to raise the salt shaker and stuff. So I was always interested in it, but I kind of like kept it on, a lid on it until probably just like 2009 is when I started getting interested. And I was talking to people about the paranormal. They had similar stories. And I was so outside of it that I rarely ever talked to anybody about paranormal at all. So it was really exciting for me to meet all kinds of people. And I think that's why I love doing podcasts too, because you get to hear everybody's stories. And I mean, there's just nothing better than hearing everybody's experiences.
That's one of the great things that the internet has done, is that you can connect and hear so many other stories. Most of this stuff you would never tell anybody. And now we're telling the whole world.
Right.
So, but, and it was, and to me, when it comes to people like psychics and mediums, I believe we all have a capability. Everyone does have a capability, but some people are more gifted than others. Just like I can shoot a basketball, but I'm not LeBron James. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I believe that is there and very well, exists. I don't know if, what will it ever become I mean, I guess apparently I've had one person on who, I got another really interesting story. I'll tell you real quick. Is that okay?
Okay.
These things
Sure.
just pop up. I'll tell you, I've talked to so many people. Let me get your opinion about this, because I'm coming from a skeptic part of this too. Okay.
Okay.
I had a guy on and I cannot remember his name. Well, I'm horrible with names apparently. But I had a guy on, I cannot remember his name, but apparently he has like a remote viewing psychic kind of thing to where he sees video, is the way he had explained it, almost like video playing out, almost like Tony Stark in Avengers, seeing stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And they even did studies on him at the it's a government place. I can't even think of the name. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the place, but they've done studies and on him with this, which I thought was interesting,
Yeah.
But I said, well, could you do one for me? And he's like, sure. Well, then he goes, I'm picturing you and you're bowling and you're awful. Basically, you're throwing a gutter ball. I don't know what it means. I have no clue. It's just what pops in my head. This will make sense to you in a few days. So, of course, I didn't think about it. I was like, I do suck at bowling. Okay, well, he nailed that on me. But I'm definitely not going bowling anytime soon. And it was like 2 days later, I was just sitting there and it popped in my head. And I thought, wait a minute, this is interesting. Because that following weekend, I had a show. And I was in a town called Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Oh.
So I thought the one side is I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. That's interesting that he brought up bowling, I thought that was kind of interesting. But then again, they got to go back to the rational, let's think about this. What if he just Googled me and saw where I was going to be in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and then boom, that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would like to actually have him back on the podcast to be, to talk to him more about it, because I thought it was kind of interesting. At least it's a conversational, it deserves conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I have two thoughts on that. One is that, you know who Temple Grandin is? Is that her name? She has autism and she invented the humane way. I guess you could call it humane way of like capturing or killing cattle. But she was autistic. And so some people do see, and she would see the formulas pop out as if it was like the earth was like a chalkboard, and she would just see it all written out. So I think some people do have they do have that ability to see. It's almost like you're dreaming and seeing your visions in front of you. It's almost like a hallucination, I suppose. So I think that that's possible. And I think he could have just Googled it. But so my question is, he said you got a gutter ball. Was there anything? Did you already go on this event?
No.
Did
This was
turn out to suck. Did
something? No. The show was, and that was the other thing too. Whenever I put two and two together, I was like, "Oh no!" You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's my first thought.
I don't want to show up and this be a crap show, you know. But yeah. I think now I'm stretching here because it was a great show. No, it was a fantastic show. But this is where I'm stretching. I'm thinking maybe he was kind of like, you're horrible at bowling, you're green at it, you know? I don't know. I mean, I know I'm stretching there a little bit, but yeah, that was the first thought went to my mind too. When I thought about that, I was like, oh my God, is he telling me that I'm going to have a horrible show on Bowling Green? You know? It's like, no, but no, actually it was a great show. And I don't know, but I did find that interesting. I got to say, I find it interesting. And here's the other thing that I want to add to his, credibility is, I mean, he was very knowledgeable, very honest too about his journey. How he got to where he is and what he was seeing. He even, talked about one time about dealing with psychosis at one time point in his life. So a lot of things he was very honest and upfront about. So I didn't pick up the con man vibe, which I'm really good at, by the way. I'll be honest with you. It really is hard to blow one by me. I know all the tricks. I know all the scams. So I didn't pick that up from him at all. But I did. But then again, I'm very Googleable. You can Google Danny Whitson and I'll pop up. It's just me, and there's another Danny Whitson who's a country music singer. So, you see, if I'm not holding the guitar, it's me, So very Google. And also I want to say real quick, so and I did not know this, and I love learning new stuff. You said her name was Temple what?
Temple Grandin?
I'll
look it up. I'm pretty sure it's
because of her, I get to eat delicious steaks still. So that's
it's a great they made a movie about it. It's a great movie. Basically I don't know if it was like the 40s or the 50s, but back before like 1970, anybody was autistic or special needs, they weren't even allowed to go to school and stuff. And so it was, I think she was trying to get her in a school and they rejected her. And it's a great story about a mother pushing her daughter and helping her and how successful she ended up being, even with all the limitations and things that got thrown at them. It's a great movie. Okay. We digress. So, before I let you go, can you share exactly where people can listen to your show? Because I highly recommend checking out your show. I really enjoyed being on it, and your guests are really fascinating.
Well, first of all, Didi, I can't wait to get you back on. But yeah, it's called Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. We stream live every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and we also air on 105.3 FM. It's the Paranormal Network on the Gulf Coast. So if you're anywhere on the Gulf Coast of the United States, you can listen to us on FM radio at 105.3. And then in New Orleans, same thing, except that's 107.7 FM. You can listen to us on the radio down there. But on YouTube, we stream live every Tuesday, 6 p.m. I have questions, guests. You can ask our guests questions during the show. We'll read them, and they answer them to the best of their ability. And yeah, we try to keep interesting guests coming on the show, like we had you, and that was a great episode. But yeah, every Tuesday, 6 p.m. streaming live. If you guys would like to come see my actual show, I do travel around. You can get that information at DannyWhitsonMagic.com, or you can give me a follow on social, Danny Whitson Magic and Comedy on Facebook, and Super Magic Boy on Instagram. So I post where I'm going to be if you ever want to come see a live show.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. It was really interesting. And now I've got a whole new theory to run with the us being an experiment.